Chennai-based space startup Agnikul Cosmos has successfully completed its first test launch of its suborbital vehicle, Agniban, making the whole country proud for many reasons. So the launch first happened from Agnikul's own and India's first private launch pad in Sriharikota. It was also the world's first flight with a single-piece 3D printed rocket engine, and this was also India's first flight with a semi-cryogenic engine. And all this was completely designed in-house as well as assembled at Agnikul's facilities in Chennai. So thanks so much Srinath Ravichandran, the co-founder and CEO of Agnikul, for joining us today and speaking to us about this. So Srinath, first things first, with so many firsts in this mission, I mean, it was bound to be complicated. So what kind of prompted you guys to try to validate so many technologies in your very first flight, and how is this going to help the larger space exploration in India?
So first of all, thanks for having me on here. I think we calibrated this test to actually, validate all of the technologies that we'll be using when we are actually trying to get to orbit. So if we were very clear that our engines should be semi-cryogenic and 3D printed, we're very clear that our autopilot guidance and navigation systems should be, they work on Ethernet-based architecture. They run on a Linux environment. We were very sure that that also should be tested now itself, and also the fact that the orbital launch will also be from a private launch pad, our launch pad. So again, a smaller version of that. So basically, we took all of the key technologies that will be proven for the first time in orbit, in going to orbit, and made a smaller version, a more affordable version of the vehicle, and tested it here. So this way, now that we know all these technologies are validated in flight, now we can focus on these as available tools and then figure out the challenge of going to orbit. Because even with known technology, going to orbit is a difficult pursuit for across the world. It's always a hard thing. So now we know that, okay, now we have these tools. We know how these work in flight. Now we can put it together and now focus on the challenge of getting to orbit, as opposed to validating technology separately and then combining that with getting to orbit as
well. Got it. So now that you've proved that these tech works, so what's next? I mean, what are you going to concentrate when it comes to the commercial aspects of Agnikul?
So I think the next one is obviously going to be an orbital flight, right? Which is probably slated for maybe 6 to 9 months from now. This was supposed to be by the end of this calendar year, but I think the suborbital launch itself took up almost half of this year. So it'll take us another 9 months or so to get to an orbital launch attempt. So we're targeting probably the end of this financial year, or first couple of months of the next financial year for the first orbital attempt. It will be an attempt with customers flying with us very likely, because this flight went flawlessly. Once the vehicle lifted off, this was a nominal flight. All the parameters were exactly within the bounds that they were supposed to be in. Not even a one standard deviation, standard deviation difference from what was expected. So we believe this will give our customers also a lot of confidence in trusting us with their assets.
Got it. So how soon are you going to make the orbital attempt?
Probably at least 9 months from now. So I would say hopefully the end of this financial year, or maybe the first couple of months of the next financial year. So April-ish maybe would be a right time. What is pending is actually, so all of the technologies have been tested except for two things. One is the stage separation part itself, because this was a single stage vehicle that we flew. And the other one is having a cluster of engines to work at the same time. This was a single engine stage. So those things we have, we are building testing rigs in our facilities to actually test out those things as well. So let's say that takes about 6 to 7 months. And then after that, once you get to the pad, that's a journey of another 2 months because you're doing it for the first time. So I think that's why this 9-month time frame sounds about right. But yeah, given some delays and so 9-10 months would be a meaningful time to go.
Got it. But in the longer term, what's the kind of customers you will serve with this? What are the use cases that will actually be possible as a business?
I think the biggest, so anyone who is wanting to take a small satellite to orbit or a few small satellites to orbit, they're customers, right? And if you look at it, SpaceX or even PSLV for that matter, any of these people from matter already fly. It's not like rockets are not flying. So what value we add as a company is to be able to offer dedicated launches or customizable launches, wherein we are not forcing a ride share for small satellites to go to orbit. Today, the way a small satellite would go to orbit, is by working with multiple other, small satellites and a lot. They'll all have to get together and take one single, vehicle right to space. That is what we are really trying to change, and we are trying to make it a process where, if a particular customer tells this is the payload mass that they want to take to orbit, this is the launch location, preferred launch location, and this is a time frame in which they want, we should be able to get it done. So
Got it.
that is, so anyone fitting that bill, right? So it could be communication satellites, Earth imaging satellites. A lot of newer applications are also coming up. People are trying to use space for, applications that we have never ever dreamt of. So I think all of those are also, people who will be our customers.
What's the pipeline looking like? You must be already obviously in talks. There must be interest inbound coming in.
Yeah, a lot of interest coming in, and of course, even since yesterday, since the flight, successful flight news came out, we have been, already getting a lot of interest from other customers as well. So, officially, we are talking to at least 70 to 80 different customers, of which with about 12 to 13 of them, the conversation is in quite advanced stages. Usually, when we initially, engage with these customers, it takes a little bit of time to figure out the techno-commercial aspects, right? Because it's not just about completely commoditized product that you're just selling. You have to choose the mission, the exact launch window, and the vehicle, the orbit, and so on. So for the first few interactions with any customer, it takes a little bit of time. That we have gone through with at least about, I think, 12, 13 people we have gone through that with already. So
Got
we are looking forward to at least having one of them in our first flight, the orbital flight.
Right. And 4 attempts. How was the mindset? I mean, both for you guys as well as the team in general. Did you know that this is not going to be first attempt?
No, we obviously didn't think of it like that when we came in. We thought we'll get it done the first time. So, see, the biggest learning in the attempts was actually two learnings, I would say. One is the product, which is the launch vehicle, is completely different from the process and the operations part of the launch. Launch campaign and launch process is its own skill set, and its own art to master, actually,
Right.
because even for this particular launch, 21 teams from Sriharikota have to come together. We are just one of the teams, literally. Out of 21, we are say now team number 20. That's it. There are 20 other teams that have to come together, and having a seamless, interaction with all of them during those, extremely, critical 6 hours or countdown to 6 hours, right? That took us a little bit of time to figure out. We underestimated the challenge there. That was number one. I think the number two part is that, the fact that your automated launch sequence, or the challenges that can come during the part of the launch countdown, where your computer decides whether your flight computer decides whether it's okay to go or not, that is an extremely critical area, and it's a bit of a fine art, because you can't put too many checks and then hold yourself up unnecessarily, but at the same time you also can't keep it too easy to just launch. So these things, optimizing on these things, looked easier when we were not on the pad. But once we went to the pad, that scale of interaction and seamlessly integrating with all the other SDSE SHAR teams, and this whole handling the automated launch sequence accurately, I think those things took us some time to figure out. That's why multiple launch attempts, there are holes coming up, and sometimes they were, we had to take the hole seriously, because the vehicle is saying it's not ready to fly, and we'll have to go and figure out why does the vehicle think it is not ready to fly. And so then you end up figuring out, oh, okay, maybe this was an error, or is this really something you can live with and still fly? And so
Right.
all of those things will have to be, thought through a little and optimized. So that is why it took us 3, 4 attempts to get there.
So how crucial was the ISRO team's involvement then? I mean, what's the ownership that they showed? Anything you have to say on how much they were involved and invested in all this?
Yeah, I think a couple of points here on the team involvement. I think, as I told you already, so many teams have to come together. I think uh, both from Agnikul side, like our vehicle director and project director, and on the Sriharikota side, the testing director happens to be from Sriharikota, right? So if you look at the testing hierarchy, we have a testing director who is the main person who's in charge for the launch, right? He basically gives the final commit for go, no go for launch. That is a person from Sriharikota, right? And then you have and then he has various teams reporting to him in the process of the countdown, and one of those is Agnikul. That's it. So the launch for Sriharikota is, yeah, one team has to do it. Oh, you have the vehicle, okay, great, but we have other 19 other 20 other teams to also work with. And so they've been super supportive. They've owned the launch like it is their launch. And because our countdown launch time is like around in the early hours of the morning, right? It's usually between 5 to 7. In all those attempts, you'll have to basically stay up through the night. And this is not an ISRO launch in the sense they will have other ISRO meetings the next day and so on. And we didn't have any hesitation from them in support. And I just felt like they did it like how they would do it for a PSLV, how they would do it for a GSLV. So I think that level of commitment, and the same thing from our team also, right? If all the attempts were happening only during night, and the next day it's not like you can take a lot of rest because you'll have to get ready for the next attempt and so on in case there is a problem. And the summer has been brutal. I think the heat wave was unbelievable. I mean, we are all from Chennai mostly, and so we know how to handle the heat, but the last 2 weeks have been like really exceptionally difficult. So I think a lot of I have a lot of appreciation for the grit from our team also. They really didn't mind the heat, and somehow we got through that process.
Right. So we noticed that, you mentioned that the project directors are two women, right? Are these Agnikul staff or ISRO? I mean, just wanted to understand their role in this.
Sure. So the project director, her name is Uma Maheshwari. She is part of Agnikul's team. She has been here with us since June 2019. And we have the vehicle director, who is Saranya, and she is also from Agnikul. So at the Agnikul's level, there are two major leadership roles with their own teams, right? So one person is responsible for delivering a fully working vehicle on the pad, and that is the vehicle director's job. So that is Saranya's job. And then the project director's job is to make sure once the vehicle is delivered on the pad, all of the tests that happen on the pad with the vehicle and pad together, and giving a final go from Agnikul's side for the launch. That is Uma Maheshwari's role. And after these two people give a go is when the Sriharikota team, the testing director who is from Sriharikota, he comes in. This was Grihadharai sir. He comes in to say it's a go. So the hierarchy so the test is owned at that level from a testing director level still by Sri Harikota. We are one team that he's managing that day because we still have the radar team, the telemetry team, the tracking team, and bunch of other teams that still report to the testing director directly. So we are coming in as the group that provides the vehicle and the pad, and beyond that, our role is over.
Got it.
Still, range operations has to be managed, and that was all taken care of by Sri.
Right, got it. And having Professor Satya Chakravarti himself as an advisor, what's the kind of role it has played for you guys to get to this spot faster?
I think he's been such an instrumental person in this whole journey for us, because without him we would not have had the IIT-Madras Association, and without him we would not have been able to reach out to Perumal sir, who is our founding advisor. He is the first person who suggested that we should go with liquid rocket engines. He is the first person who suggested that this sort of modularity should be there and so on in our vehicle. So I think all of that happened through Professor Satya Chakravarti. In the early days also, we used to spend a lot of time reviewing the vehicle configuration with him. And then subsequently him being a, he's a rocket scientist with a propulsion background. He's considered one of the most prominent combustion experts in the country. So probably across the world as well. So I think that how to bring your designs to a quality where ISRO would even start appreciating it. I think that mentorship came from Professor. So I think that was a big role. I think, and the IIT-Madras Association also happened through him. So yeah, very very glad that we met. At least for Moin and I, we got very lucky in that we in our first 6 months, right, of trying to start this formally. We met Professor Satya, who was okay, and we met Perumal sir, who was okay. I think these people shaped the journey.
Right.
Otherwise, we would have been a little lost in those early years.
Got it. And both you co-founders, I mean, if you'd just like to tell us a bit about why you chose to do this.
For me, I think so. Very different reasons for me and Moin, right? I think for me, I was a space enthusiast from my childhood. Grew up in a family of people who were all into physics, and grew up reading science fiction, hard science fiction. So I think that's where my fascination started. And so when it was time to actually do a career, and I tried a few other things, but then finally realized that my heart is in engineering, my heart is in space. So I should just go and try that honestly. So that was my real ambition to get here. When I was in the US for some time, I realized that there is a struggle. People are not able to get to space. So in my own, dreamland, I could say, I used to be thinking about problems that people face after they go to space, right? But then you realize that, hey, there's a bigger problem. No one is able to go there. Forget what happens after you get there. So that is why initial thoughts were like, let us first make going to space at least as easy as going to any other point on Earth. I think I think we both were having the same goal. Space transportation shouldn't be this hard, and so that is what got us started.
Right. And from the initial days, you've now kind of scaled your team, right? Just talk about the team and the facility here. So how big are you now?
So we started off as like 2, 3 people in a lunchroom in one of the buildings at IIT. So we were very lucky to get the right set of people as we grew. So today we have about 225 people or so in the company. Other than that, we also have a huge community of retired ISRO scientists helping us, right? And these are people who are some of the best people I've met in my life, I would say, not only from their technical know-how standpoint, but just their way of, looking at challenges at this scale and, trying to get through things with both some practicality, but at the same time with extreme rigor. That is there. So now we have also 4 facilities, right? We have where we test our engines, where we assemble the vehicle, where we make our rocket engines, and so on. So yeah, I think things have changed quite a bit over the last 6 years now.
Right. And so how's the team reaction? Are you giving them a day off?
Yeah, a lot of people were already less than that is. I thought a lot of people would want to party right after, but everyone was like, the best party is going to be getting 2 days of sleep. So obviously, yeah. At least on the core team, the heat has been brutal, as I told you, right? Even though they're generally I think the core team who managed the countdown was actually quite young. All of them were in their, mid to late 20s. I think even that age group, people wanted some rest before partying because I think the heat wave was at its brutal
Rest.
best.
And all of your investors have come out, being extremely happy with what they've seen. I think for any investor, more than the returns or anything, seeing this has made them like really glad. So what's ahead? I mean, do you think obviously raising money is going to get easier? So unicorn, is that important?
Yeah, I first of all, I think with our investors, very lucky to again have this group of people because it's not easy to bet on a venture like this when at least in India it's not a very well understood market, right? So I should really thank them, all of them actually, because they have been very patient. We have been trying to get the launch done since December last year, right? And then every month goes by with some reason or the other. It's almost like someone in school comes and says, "Yeah, I'm not well. Can I come back next day?" Something like that has been happening over and over, right? So very happy and glad that they were able to understand, and most of them actually lived through the journey. And from my side, Moin and I, we were trying our best to keep them as much as possible in the loop because there is then that sense of empathy that comes in, right? Because otherwise, it just looks like if you look from the outside, it's like Agnikul is trying for the last 6 months, nothing has happened. But that is not how it can be oversimplified as. So I think that way we've had very understanding investors. I also think, I mean, unicorn and no unicorn valuation is that's a numbers game and that's a different story. Here, what we have done besides this whole vision of making space transportation accessible is there's really some nation building happening here, and
Right. And some of these developments like privatization of space or, the ecosystem, I think there are some space parks coming up, large kind of physical real estate also being built out. How do you see that? What's this going to do in the next 5 years?
I think it's great because, first of all, one more, I just want to take this moment to thank InSpace again. I've always been thanking them every time I've had an opportunity to talk to anyone because we know ISRO has always been supportive, but they never had a mandate specifically to support entirely private missions. You can work with ISRO as a private player by becoming a vendor to ISRO. And that is actually what was mandated, right? And still, we have had some people within ISRO, like even the current chairman of ISRO, who've been super supportive. But beyond that, at the government level, creating something like InSpace and having a very clear framework in how you could, go ahead and do a launch from India, or even operate satellites from India, or operate ground stations from India, operate launch pads from India. I think that has been possible only because of InSpace. And I think InSpace has also been very instrumental in translating that to reality. It's one thing to say that there is a body out there to regulate, to authorize, to promote, but there's another thing to say the body is actually functional, right? Even though the policies are just forming and so on. So what this has done to your question about, the space parks and all the other, ecosystem enabling things that are happening is, I think people have overall realized that, there is there is value to be added here. There's money to be made here. And and, and as I told you, by putting a space park out there, it is like the ecosystem that is going to get built. It is very different from what happens if a large, like a software industry park is put up, because there you're serving one class of the community, right? One group of vendors or one group of, people. This is much more ubiquitous. You're looking at, across engineering streams, across, facilities, across operations, so many different people who are going to be benefited by that ecosystem. So if a space park comes up, or an aerospace park comes up, or any manufacturing setup comes up, you're benefiting the entire community there. I think many state governments have realized that, which is why I'm seeing that happen in Telangana and Tamil Nadu as well. And we also have this from Tamil Nadu. I think we have this really lucky, geographical spot, right? We have places like Kolasekara Pattam Fair where you can directly go to sun synchronous orbit. So I think those are all nice leverage points that we should really use in the state's favor, because once a space park comes up and a launch pad comes up, you're going to have thousands of jobs. You're going to have crores and crores of rupees coming into the state through those ecosystems.
And just one last question. Can we call you the SpaceX of India, or is that something that tag you, or do you have a tag of your own that you'd like?
Yeah, I think a lot of people refer, it's a easy approximation or analogy, I would say. But I think the way we started and the way SpaceX started is very different, right? I think Elon Musk had a lot more money to start with, and this whole academia angle and all that was not there in the SpaceX story.
But I think
We could definitely.
when he took 8 attempts and you only took 5, so you're still bigger than Elon Musk.
No, I think they do a lot of large missions, so it's a little too early to compare. But one thing is for sure that the kind of things that they have done actually opened up a lot of the thinking, the mindset that we have, right? Because to not hesitate to go and do a controlled ascent flight. I think sounding rocket is easy to attempt because it basically goes by itself once in that initial thrust is given.
Right. Thanks so much, Srinath, for joining us, talking to us at Businessline. So I leave you to either party or sleep. It's your choice. Have fun. And thanks so much for making all of us proud.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.